Aitah for not feeling like I need to apologize. In-law related, long story. Here is my situation. It is a long story, but I will attempt to summarize it with bullet points for clarity regarding the timeline. I married my husband, the eldest of 4 boys, 9 years ago. I initially believed I fit in well with his family, and everything seemed good. Shortly after our wedding, I began to hear from siblings, family friends, and others about the issues my mother-in-law has had with me. Over time, I kept these feelings bottled up because I genuinely felt that my in-laws had been supportive and had done much for us, such as paying for family vacations and meals. A few years into our marriage, my husband's younger brother started dating a girl. I quickly noticed that she was not a suitable match for him. Thinking I was being helpful, young and naive, I shared my concerns with the brother in private and later spoke about it with the family, but never to the girlfriend's face since I wanted to foster a good relationship. Eventually, my mother-in-law began having her own issues with the girlfriend, and the brother became engaged to her. Just before the wedding, my mother-in-law revealed to the brother that, essentially, no one liked his fiancée, making the situation very uncomfortable for everyone. They got married, but issues persisted for years for various reasons. My husband and I sincerely apologized to her for any pain we caused. Even though things eventually improved, I still feel bad to this day, especially since they divorced after 5 years. While the problematic daughter-in-law was part of the family, my relationship with my mother-in-law was positive since she appreciated me for not being like the other woman. During the second brother's divorce, the third brother became engaged. Although it was a dramatic time, the girl he chose was wonderful, and the family quickly fell in love with her. I began to hear more about how loved she was and how much my mother-in-law struggled with me compared to her. The third brother approached my husband and me, seeking details about family drama from which he had been excluded due to his age. Despite our better judgment, we shared some of the information, including my feelings of hurt about my mother-in-law. They sometimes would come to us with their grievances as well. Our relationship with him and his fiancée became very close. We spent time together frequently, enjoyed dinners, exchanged gifts, and hosted parties for their wedding. It got to the point that they moved into the other side of our duplex. An important side note: what no one knew at the time was that my husband and I began struggling with our religion, Latter-day Saints, a couple of years prior, and our toddler was diagnosed with autism. It has been a challenging journey, especially since my husband was working to establish his career. Our in-laws offered financial assistance multiple times without us asking, and we graciously accepted. We kept this information private from the rest of the family because, honestly, they didn't need to know. In summary, we faced many hardships simultaneously, but we were finding our way and felt grateful for our support system. Back to the timeline, we attended a friend's wedding about a month after the third brother's marriage, where we consumed alcohol. When our in-laws found out, they were extremely upset and believed it was the worst decision we could have made. This was a very isolating experience for me. I began therapy, uncovering traumas I was unaware of, and started the process of working through them. We started sensing tension with the third brother, who was now our neighbor, in addition to the parents. We attempted to address it and improve our relationship by making apologies. But during our conversation with the brother and his new wife, they relayed a multitude of things my mother-in-law had told them that we supposedly did or said, resulting in a complete breakdown of trust for me regarding my mother-in-law. Ultimately, we apologized for where we were wrong, and everyone agreed that if any issues arose, we should communicate directly with one another rather than discussing them with others. We felt we had resolved matters with the third brother, which was great. At least we believed we were in a good place with them, even if things were still tense with the parents. As time passed, we noticed the tension with the third brother persisted. We checked in again, asking if everything was okay, and received a positive response. As more time went by, we continued checking in, and again were reassured that everything was fine. They insisted they were just busy. Assuming all was well, I began initiating short one-on-one walks with my new sister-in-law. During these walks, I was honest about feeling overwhelmed by life and avoided any discussions about my in-laws. Thinking she was being a supportive friend, she would inquire about my relationship with my in-laws, and I would keep it brief, not delving into anything too deep. Less than 6 months later, the third brother informed us they were moving away. A week ago, I offered to help show them their new apartment because they were too busy to do so, and it quickly became apparent that I was unwelcome in their home. After discussing the situation with my husband, we concluded that since they were moving, we needed to clarify whether we were truly on good terms, since we genuinely did not understand what we had done wrong. Since we rarely saw them in person, having only spent time together maybe twice since they moved in, we sent a couple of text messages expressing our sincere apologies and love. A day later, we received a lengthy response, an elaborate message detailing supposed quotes attributed to me by my mother-in-law and father-in-law. They claimed we had stolen money from them and concluded that we should not complain about those who had helped us so much and that we were victims in this situation. They expressed a lack of respect and trust for us and stated they wanted distance. Heartbroken and feeling terrible, yet utterly confused, I recalled having conversations about various topics, but I do not remember saying anything so hurtful. I sense those remarks were taken out of context, as they do not reflect my true feelings. I apologized profusely and accepted responsibility for more than my fair share since I understood why they felt upset based on what they were told. However, in my heart, I felt deeply misunderstood, as if assumptions were made about me and my husband that simply were not true. They acknowledged some of their assumptions, but did little more than that. We had lengthy discussions with my mother-in-law and father-in-law separately. I expressed my desire to defend myself against the accusations, but my mother-in-law cut me off, insisting that no matter what I said, she believed what she had heard. Throughout much of the conversation, she accused us of being ungrateful and declared that all trust and respect disappeared after we began drinking, which had been infrequent, and we have abstained for a long time now, and that our challenges were a consequence of our drinking. It turned out that for the past 6 months, those four had gathered to speak negatively about us, exchanging information back and forth. My mother-in-law and father-in-law claimed it all started because my brother-in-law and sister-in-law approached them with everything we had allegedly said about them, leaving them unsure of how to respond. I do not know what is genuinely true, but even if their intentions were good, things spiraled quickly. They only grew angrier without ever coming to us to ask questions or attempt to resolve issues. Additionally, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law painted the situation as extremely one-sided, portraying my husband and me as constantly complaining, which was far from the truth. We barely spoke over the past 6 months, so I was left wondering what they meant. With my mother-in-law and father-in-law, we all agreed to move forward, even though I felt I had essentially been told I was not allowed to feel hurt, that I did not deserve the chance to defend myself, and that we had to accept being viewed as the villains in this narrative. I still have not spoken face to face with the third brother. However, I have been reflecting on the time spent specifically with my sister-in-law, feeling deeply hurt and betrayed. Why would she repeatedly ask about my relationship with my in-laws during our walks, knowing things were difficult? This experience has significantly impacted my mental health, plunging me into a spiral of depression as I question every part of myself. I have never experienced family speaking to me in such a manner, and it has left my husband and me in shock. I cannot help but look back on all these years and wonder if this family was perfectly fine before I entered the picture. Perhaps I am the problem. I am torn between feeling remorseful for what they heard and regretting that I ever opened my mouth about anything that was not their concern, while also feeling deeply hurt, betrayed, and misunderstood. It feels as though any chance I had to approach my mother-in-law to address my feelings was removed. I now question whether I should continue apologizing to my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, since they played a significant role in this situation, but appear justified in their actions, as if they have done nothing wrong. I fear that if I do not simply concede and apologize once more, the relationship will never improve. Should I apologize again? Am I the antagonist in this situation? Story 2. Aitah am genuinely terrified of being dumb. Throwaway account because I do not want personal information on my main. This is going to be lengthy, I apologize. I, 17 years old, female, have always been regarded as a sort of genius child within my family. I have always enjoyed reading and excelled in mathematics. I loved science and always had random fun facts about different animals that I admired. I received excellent grades throughout elementary school, accumulating numerous awards and accomplishments due to my efforts. I cannot recall which of these events occurred first, but they remain very vivid in my memory. In 5th grade, there were 2 occasions that I believe marked the first times I failed to meet the expectations set for me. The first instance involved one of my teachers recommending me for the gifted classes at my school, encouraging me to seek recommendations from my other teachers to enroll in the gifted program. She mentioned that they might not agree, but they did not see the potential she recognized in me. I felt a sense of pride from her words. However, I do not remember actually gaining admission to the class. Perhaps I did not receive the necessary recommendations or something similar. A little while later, we had a project in which we were required to create a model of a plant or animal cell. I procrastinated and constructed a truthfully quite poor plant cell using materials my family had available at the time. I brought it to class the next day. My teacher was visibly upset with my project, stating something along the lines of, "This is not what I expected from someone I recommended for gifted classes." I remember being deeply hurt and angry. It was the first time I felt it was unfair for her to express that. She established a high expectation for me, and it was not my fault that I fell short on one trivial project. I did not ask to be recommended for those classes. She initiated that process. Nevertheless, the pain from her words was profound, and I still grapple with how to manage such emotions and disappointment. The second incident occurred when I received my first failing grade, still in 5th grade. I believe it was in mathematics. I approached my mother and handed her the paper, trembling and hyperventilating because I feared her reaction. At that moment, she reassured me and said it was acceptable, but that incident set a negative tone for the remainder of my academic journey. My entire middle school experience was somewhat of a failure. The COVID-19 pandemic struck when I was in 6th grade, resulting in me struggling in nearly all my classes due to the lack of structure and accountability, which ultimately led to my academic shutdown. I think it was in 8th grade when I enrolled in a coding class at my school. By that point, we were attending classes in person, and I was gradually getting back on track. We were learning to type as quickly as possible using a program that tracked our words per minute and accuracy. I was fairly competent at typing, or at least I believed it was a skill I was supposed to excel in. I aimed to achieve a high words per minute with a perfect score on a particularly challenging level of the program, but I simply could not do it. I kept resetting the program whenever I made an error, restarting over and over. It got to the point where I was tearing up, and eventually I began crying because I felt so foolish for not succeeding with the task. I was excused from class. The teacher believed I was just having a bad day. I wasn't. In 9th grade, I missed the previous day's Algebra 1 class, which coincidentally was when we began a new unit. I entered the classroom unaware of what to do, and my teacher was rather intimidating and not particularly adept at explaining things in a manner I could comprehend. Everyone around me seemed to grasp the material perfectly, while I sat confused. I dissociated throughout the entire period, staring blankly at my empty paper. I was so out of touch that my friend had to tap me and physically guide me from my seat when the bell rang. In the following period, I continued to dissociate until I began fidgeting, then shaking uncontrollably, culminating in a full-blown panic attack. Similar incidents occurred twice afterward, once in precalculus and once in Spanish. I struggled to understand the material, resulting in dissociation that escalated into panic attacks. I believe the severity was heightened because these were subjects I was expected to excel in, yet I felt utterly incompetent in those brief moments. It does not help that my mother tends to present her precious genius child to my family like a broken trophy, exaggerating my accomplishments, or even fabricating stories to make me seem favorable and impose unrealistic expectations. I was once accepted into a 2-month college program where we received personalized coaching about life, finances, and gaining admission to reputable colleges. My mother exaggerated the entire situation, and half of my family became convinced that I was attending a legitimate college and graduated from that program in 2 months. I am fairly certain that some of them still believe that to this day. Recently, My grandfather expressed confidence that I would achieve a 4.0 GPA, while in reality, my grade point average is genuinely poor because I am not nearly as intelligent as my mother has portrayed me. The unfortunate reality is that I cannot function without a constant affirmation of my intelligence. My ego has been excessively inflated due to the continuous praises I received while growing up. Any suggestion that someone believes I am not intelligent or exceptional strikes me personally, and I simply want to curl up and weep. Once, a friend of mine mentioned the top students in our math class. Though she did not phrase it exactly that way, it was implied, and I was deeply hurt when my name was not included. She only mentioned 3 individuals, herself included, all of whom were objectively superior in mathematics compared to me. Still, I felt compelled to ask her why I was not mentioned, attempting to conceal my hurt. I laughed it off, saying, "Well, I'm good too," hoping to elicit her acknowledgement. Since that moment, for the remainder of the semester, I subconsciously dedicated myself to collaborating with her in math and assisting her whenever I knew an answer. God forbid she struggled for even 2 seconds, as I felt the need to prove my capability to her. All of this stemmed from a single trivial joke that held no real significance. Nonetheless, the thought of her not viewing me as one of the best students wounded me deeply. I apologize for the length and somewhat aimless nature of this post. I simply wanted to share my experience regarding what is likely burnout stemming from being a gifted child. Summary: being labeled as a gifted child resulted in constant unrealistic expectations placed upon me, leading to panic attacks when I struggled to comprehend or accomplish something, and I took things too personally whenever I was not regarded as the smartest.